12 years ago now, the World Cup was awarded to Qatar for 2022. Now, a full 12 years later, the world's completely different, but the World Cup in Qatar is finally here. It's this week. It's right on our doorstep. So here, I'm going to look at every single team in the tournament and give you my predictions of how this whole tournament is going to go game by game, group by group, and eventually who the world champion is going to be. As always, don't forget to like the videos, subscribe if you're new to the channel, Twitter and TikTok, daily content, you know the drill. But yeah, let's jump right into these predictions. With Group A, straight off the bat, I am going to go ahead and say it. For a long time, my prediction was Senegal first, Netherlands second, Ecuador third, and Qatar in fourth. However, I made a last minute change. I put Netherlands in first, Senegal second, Ecuador third, Qatar fourth. Here's why. Sadio Mane, the key attacker for Senegal, yes, they have other players, but he is the focal point of that team. He did go down injured. Yes, he's in the roster. Yes, he is going to be available for the tournament. However, in the first game, he either may not play or he won't be at his best. So, I changed the result. Because Senegal plays Netherlands in the first game, I changed that from a draw to a Netherlands win. That puts Netherlands in first and Senegal in second. Senegal still go through, still through to the knockout rounds, but in first place for Senegal. Ecuador, I don't want you to sleep on Ecuador. They're a good team. They've got potential to do an upset. I have them even getting a point against the Netherlands. But do they have enough to get through at this moment in time? I'm not quite sure about that yet. It's a young team, underrated, very talented team. Will they get through? Maybe it's possible, but probably not. I think for Qatar, it's awkward because, yes, they're at home. Yes, teams at home typically tend to get through. Qatar not only has the worst roster in the tournament, but Senegal and Ecuador are the best teams in pots 3 and 4 from the World Cup draw, at least at the time that the draw occurred. So that is really tricky for them. Netherlands also always a good team, and they tend to do well in the group stage of tournaments. So unlucky for Qatar. I do have them scoring 1 goal, but I don't think they're going to get any points. But you know what? Stranger things have happened, and FIFA tends to be corrupt, so you never know. Okay, Group B, the U.S.'s group. Before I explain what I have over here on the right side of your screen, ever since the draw was made, you guys know Infinity War, that scene where Doctor Strange is evaluating all the possible outcomes? Yeah, I've basically been doing that for this group for the last 7 months.
How many did you see?
14,605,000.
This is the final one I've come to, but a lot of things could happen, and I've pictured them in my head already. I do think that Wales are not the biggest threat in this group. Yes, they've been talked about a lot. I believe they're 19th ranked in the world, so of course they're a good team. They have some talented players, a lot of Premier League and upper level championship players, but I do think that they are on the older side. Their age is catching up to them. They don't quite have that same factor they had in 2016, where they were kind of a shock to everyone and pretty much unknowns for the most part. Gareth Bale is really not at his best. He hasn't been playing in MLS. Yes, he scored an MLS Cup, but again, he could only play 15 minutes as a substitute because he wasn't fully fit. I'm not sure about Wales. I do have the U.S. beating Wales 1-0 at this moment. I have Wales losing 2-0 to Iran, who I think are a bigger threat than Wales. And I do have them getting a point against England at the end. I think for Iran, they're an underrated team and a very real threat for the U.S. I have them losing to England in the first game, destroying Wales in the second game, and then a draw with the U.S. in the final game. For the United States and England, yes, I have the U.S. beating Wales. I have the U.S. tying England in the second game, which I think is very possible. I think that honestly could go either way. England obviously heavily favored, but I do think the U.S. may be able to somehow get a point out of that. And then in the final game, I have the U.S. tying Iran 0-0. I think the U.S. will honestly be playing for that because they'll know a point will be enough to get through at that point. But yeah, this is a tricky to predict group. I think that it'll be either the U.S. or Iran who goes through. I'd be a little surprised if it was Wales. But yeah, don't sleep on Iran. I know there's a little turmoil around the country and even around the national team right now. Do not sleep on them. They're a very good team. They can pose a threat to everyone in this group. And yeah, but I do have the U.S. just sneaking through. Group C. Look, I hate to be that guy, but we're Mexico. Yikes. Who's gonna? Okay, we'll start with Argentina. I think they'll win every game. I think they'll be relatively comfortable. Again, they will need some time in the group stage to figure themselves out. Di Maria not fully fit. Dybala coming back as well. Still one of the favorites to win the tournament. They'll probably get 9 points. Poland. They've traditionally underperformed in tournaments. This is Lewandowski's last shot at a World Cup, so it's going to be really big for him. First game against Mexico, likely a decider in this group. I do have it going down as a draw. We'll see what happens. Saudi Arabia, and then we'll come back to Mexico because I do have a bit more to say about them. Saudi Arabia, do not sleep on Saudi Arabia either. Honestly, Saudi Arabia does have probably the worst or second worst roster at this tournament. But other than the strength of their individual players, they have pretty much everything else going for them. Most of the players on their roster play for the same couple teams. They all play domestically. They're playing 6 friendlies directly in the build-up. Their league finished early, so all the players can be playing games together. And they were solid and well organized against the U.S. Look, I don't think they're going to get out of this group, but I'm not going to say there's a 0% chance they get out because there is slim underdog story potential, though, again, not the greatest group. I still don't think they'll get through. Mexico. They are a team that is in decline. Their best players are either not here, Carlos Vela, or just older, Guardado, Hector Herrera, Guillermo Ochoa, no longer at their best. Edson Alvarez is really the one player who stands out to me as a real difference maker. Chucky Lozano not at his best. Raul Jimenez really shouldn't be here. He's injured. They brought him over Santi Jimenez, which is crazy to me. I don't know who's going to score goals for this Mexico team. I do have them getting one against Poland, one against Argentina, but I don't think this is a team that screams goals to me. And yeah, they've made the round of 16 every single World Cup since 1994. But that may come to an end. Now, the saving grace for Mexico is that this is a weak group. Poland and Saudi Arabia are both teams they are expected to beat. But for some reason, my head is telling me they're not going to do either of those, and they're going to tie both games. And it's going to be a big disappointment for El Tri because, again, there's some talent there, but it's either aging out or, in Carlos Vela's case, just not in the national team anymore. Anyway, we are going to move on to Group D. All right, this is an interesting group. France, the defending champion, is in here. Denmark. We'll come back to Denmark later. I really like this Denmark team. The other two teams are really weak, Australia and Tunisia. So I think that Denmark will win all 3 games. I think Denmark are similar to what Croatia were in the last World Cup. I think that because of the condensed schedule, because of the awkward timing in the middle of the European season, it's in the winter, someone's going to go on a run in this tournament. Someone weird is going to go really far. And I think it's going to be Denmark. They've got all the potential to do that. Genuinely in incredible form. They won all 10 qualifiers. This is a phenomenal Denmark team. I have them beating France. They've shown they're capable of beating France. They've beaten France a couple of times in the last year, in fact. France, I know there's the World Cup champions curse where they're supposedly going to go out in the group stage. I think Australia and Tunisia are too weak to knock out France. I don't see how it would be possible for the French to get knocked out in the group stage. Though I do think they're going to have a disappointing tournament, and we'll come back to that in the knockout rounds. I have them squeaking through. Australia and Tunisia, I don't really see much of a shot. I guess the one bizarre prediction I do also have in here is that Tunisia ties France. I could see a weird result happening there. Tunisia are alongside Qatar and Saudi Arabia the 3 weakest rosters going into this tournament. But I do have Tunisia going out on a point. but somehow getting a point against the defending champions, France. I don't know why I think that, I just do. Yeah, we're going to move on to Group E. I do not think that there's a group of death in this tournament. However, for me, this is the most difficult group. Looking at Germany, who I'm wearing their jersey, I think that they will beat Japan and Costa Rica. Germany still trying to figure some things out. Toni Kroos not coming to this World Cup. Mats Hummels left at home. So 2 World Cup vets who were with the team in 2014, not with the squad, who would have made the team better for sure. But it is what it is. I do think they'll get out of the group. I think they'll lose to Spain. Spain, I really like this Spain team. They can go really, really far in this World Cup. But they might need some time to figure things out. They've got an awesome coach, Luis Enrique, and I think that they are one of the teams that is quietly one of the favorites to win the World Cup. However, I do think they'll need some time to figure out in the group stage, which is why I have them tying against Costa Rica and actually losing to a very good Japan team who are very underrated, maybe the most underrated in the tournament. I have Japan also tying Costa Rica, losing to Germany, a team that can absolutely go through. Germany and Spain are obviously the favorites to be the top 2 in this group, and I think they will be the 2 that go through, but there is big potential for one of them to drop out, not because Germany and Spain aren't good. They're both top 5 teams in the world, but Japan and Costa Rica are both relatively formidable teams given the pots that they're in. Costa Rica, I think they're not very good anymore. I think it's kind of a theme I've been sticking with throughout this video, is that teams that had a fairy tale run years ago, there are 3 teams in this tournament that fit that criteria for me, and those 3 teams all have the same cores they did when they made those runs. They're just a lot older, and that's a problem. So Costa Rica, Wales, and Croatia, who we're going to talk about in a minute, yes, they have that magic. They have that tournament experience. Costa Rica 8 years ago got to the quarterfinals of the World Cup. Wales 6 years ago got to the semifinals of the Euros, and Croatia, of course, 4 years ago, not that far removed, got to the final of the World Cup. The cores of those teams really are the same, and they're just yes, they have the experience, yes, they have that magic dust, so to speak, but do they still have what it takes to do what they did in years past? I'm not sure. So for Costa Rica, I think Keylor Navas will put up a great fight. I think they'll get 2 points out of this group, but they will be eliminated in the group stage, unfortunately. I mentioned I was going to talk about Croatia. This is one of my bold takes. I have Croatia finishing last in the group and going out in the group stage of the World Cup. Who would have thought? I have Morocco going through, and I'll explain that pick in a second. Belgium, we'll start with them because they're the top seeded team. Yes, this is their last chance for their golden generation to do something in a tournament. Maybe not as good as they were in years past. I don't really think they're a tournament favorite, and probably the weakest team in Pot A other than Qatar. I do have them winning the group though and going undefeated. I think Canada will tie every game, which is a weird thing, but it just seems like something that Canada would do, right? They somehow go undefeated but still don't get out of that. Seems like something Canada would do, doesn't it? Anyway, I hope they do well. It would be good. It would be good for MLS, good for the region. I kind of alluded to what I was talking about with Croatia. Yes, Croatia does actually have some younger players coming up who are good. They've kind of got those 2 generations stuck in between at this moment. Luka Modric in his mid to late 30s now. Some younger players coming up in their earlier 20s. But I don't think this is the World Cup for them. I do have them finishing 4th in the group. Morocco. Now, this is the first Arab World Cup, in the first World Cup in the Middle East or North Africa. I think that with Morocco, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and Tunisia, we have 4 Arab countries in this World Cup. You know, I feel like at least one is going to get out of the group. It would just be a little weird if one didn't. Kind of like how Ghana made that deep run in 2010 in the first African World Cup. And, you know, they got to the quarterfinals and were frankly a handball away from the semis. So I have Morocco going through, not just because of that though, but because Hakim Ziyech coming back, and this is a refreshed team. I think that they've just got potential, and they're an underrated squad that can get out of this group, which is a relatively even group and kind of a, this is a pretty competitive group. I really like it. But I do have Morocco sneaking out of the group stage with a win over Croatia on the opening day. It's at 4 a.m. Central Time, so I don't know if I'll be fully alert for it, but it will definitely be an interesting matchup there and could be a potential group decider. But yeah, I do think that one Arab country will get out. Again, I don't think it's going to be Qatar, Saudi Arabia, or Tunisia most likely, because those are the 3 weakest rosters in the entire tournament. Morocco do have a bit more strength in their roster, and yes, they have a more difficult group than some of those previous teams I mentioned, but I think they can get out and could be one of those feel-good stories at this World Cup. Group G. I was really comfortable with picking Brazil in first. They're the favorite to win the tournament. We'll come back to them in the knockout stages a bit more. We'll talk about them a little bit more. They've just got the talent, the star power, and yeah, they can go really far in this World Cup. Cameroon, I'm not so sure about. They barely qualified. It took a last-minute goal for them to get in against Algeria. I don't want to sleep on them. I know these predictions are not very flattering to Cameroon, and they're probably going to do better than 0 points. But for me, this comes down to Switzerland and Serbia. 2 teams I really like. 2 teams that have potential to make a deep run. 2 teams that are both potential dark horses. Switzerland, we saw what they did in the Euros. They beat France on penalties, went toe-to-toe with Spain, and were really, really close to making the semifinals. They've still got a lot of that core from previous tournaments, which we talked about Croatia and Wales and Costa Rica and how that's not necessarily the best thing. But with Xherdan Shaqiri of the Chicago Fire, and then you've got Xhaka and guys like Breel Mbolo, who's a bit younger, Jan Zomer in goal. I know he's been dealing with some injury stuff, but we'll see. Switzerland's a good team. Serbia, on the other hand, attacking star power, they have aplenty. I mean, Alexander Mitrovic, of course. Vlahovic, of course. Luka Jovic, but, a talented striker as well. Milinkovic-Savic in the midfield. There's so much talent in the Serbian team. And Switzerland are such a well-oiled machine. On the other hand, this was the hardest prediction for me to make. It honestly came down to a flip of a coin for me, because I put the flip of the coin said Switzerland goes through. But that Switzerland-Serbia game, final game of the group, this has potential to be the best game of the group stage of this World Cup. These are 2 teams who met in Russia, and it was one of the most heated matches. It created a controversy which is still being talked about 4.5 years later. Keep an eye on this game. This is going to be a hell of a match, and I can't wait to see who comes out on top, but I think it could really go either way. Group H, and yes, I actually did make a late swap here when the rosters were announced. So, Portugal, I do think they're going to win the group. I think they're going to come in first. I think if they bench Ronaldo, which will have to be a really bold thing to do for Santos, but if they do it, I think it'll be beneficial for the team. Maybe bring him off the bench. I do think Portugal wins every game. They've got enough talent all around. Guys like Leao, of course. João Felix not having the best start to the season, but still a very talented player. Bernardo Silva. I think Portugal wins the group. Uruguay. Now, weirdly, for a while, I had this gut feeling that they were not going to get out. They were going to be a flop of the tournament. When I saw Araujo, their center back, go down, I was thinking, Ghana's got talent. They've got Iñaki Williams coming into the team, Tariq Lamptey, among others. Yes, Uruguay have a more talented team, but maybe Ghana can get through with an upset in the final game. Well, Araujo's back. Fede Valverde is in the best form of his career and is probably a top 5 midfielder in the world right now. I find it hard to believe that Uruguay aren't going to go through. So I do have Portugal first, Uruguay second, Ghana third. And South Korea, who we haven't really talked about that much. Yes, Humanson's back in the squad. He's not 100% fit. I'm not really sure how good they're going to be. They could maybe get a result against Ghana, but I don't see it happening against Portugal or Uruguay. Though, personally, I think it would be great if Ghana could pull off that upset that I originally thought was going to happen, and maybe get some revenge for 2010, because they really were hard done by with Luis Suarez's stoppage time handball. But we'll see what happens. I do have Uruguay coming second. They're a team now with their squad, with Araujo back in, with Fede Valverde in the form he's in, with Darwin Nunez up top. A team with dark horse potential who can really make a deep run. And if they didn't have to play Brazil in the round of 16, maybe a team that could go really far. So if they do win the group, a team that can really make a semifinal run. We'll talk about the round of 16. We'll just go quick fire through the knockout rounds. I had Netherlands playing the United States, and I do think the US will lose to Holland in extra time. Netherlands just a better, well-oiled machine, more experience, more talent overall across the board. The US coming up just short. I do think we'll put up a good fight, but I have the Netherlands going through. But though maybe I'm being a bit optimistic with the US. That's fair. Argentina versus France, a rematch of the round of 16 of the last World Cup. I think the reverse result will happen this time. I have Argentina winning 3-2 in another thriller, just like the one we saw 4 years ago, but Argentina coming out on top this time. Messi advances to the quarterfinals in his final World Cup. Germany and Morocco, I think Morocco will make things tough for Germany. I don't have full confidence in Die Mannschaft at this World Cup, and honestly, I'm a little worried that they could go out early. However, I do have them getting past Morocco. Again, this kind of is a trap game, kind of like that Algeria round of 16 game in 2014 that Algeria took them to extra time. Mesut Ozil scoring in the final minutes there. But I have Germany winning this one 2-1, advancing to the quarters. Brazil and Uruguay, this should be a great game. I have Brazil winning 2-0 just because they've got so much talent and I think they can go all the way. But I do have Uruguay losing at this stage. England against Senegal. 2-1 win for England. Senegal, again, they can put up a good fight. Sadio Mane should be fully back at this point. But I do have England winning and advancing to the quarters. Denmark against Poland. Yeah, I don't see Denmark losing this one. Maybe Poland taking the pens. Lewandowski helping them along the way there. Przemysław Frankowski, formerly of the Chicago Fire, helping them get there. But Denmark advances. Denmark are such a good team, man. Trust me, they can go really deep. Belgium and Spain. I do have Spain winning this one. I've set on penalties as well. Belgium's golden generation comes to an end here against the Spanish, who really just have more young, fresh talent. Portugal and Switzerland. Again, Switzerland could pull this off. It's not impossible. And it's Serbia, too, because I mentioned that group was really tight. I think Serbia also are a team that could beat Portugal. They did it in qualifying. They topped the group. That's the reason Portugal had to go to the playoffs. But I do have Portugal going through. I'm going for the safe bet. And yeah, that brings us to the quarterfinals. I don't have any outlandish teams being in the quarterfinals, which is a little unfortunate because I was kind of hoping that my bracket would pan out in such a way that some weird country got through, but that didn't happen. Like I said, originally Senegal was in the quarterfinals. They didn't make it this time because of that switch I made to Group A. I think Argentina will crush the Netherlands. I think Brazil will crush Germany. Like, I'm not totally convinced by this Germany team. Hopefully they catch fire, catch momentum, and can go all the way to the World Cup trophy, but I just don't think it's going to happen. Hansi Flick, I don't know what he can do with this team, but he is a very good coach, so fingers crossed Germany can make something happen and get past the quarterfinals. But Brazil have so much talent, I just find that it's going to be difficult. I think Denmark will beat England on penalties. Again, that's revenge for Euro 2020. Denmark advancing to the semifinals. That is the bold prediction. That's the boldest of all these predictions. Denmark in the semifinals. You heard it here first. They're going to be the Croatia of this World Cup from the last World Cup. I have Spain beating Portugal. Spain, fantastic team, great young talent, great coaching. I have them beating Portugal, and Cristiano Ronaldo's World Cup comes to an end at the quarterfinals. On to the semifinals, and we have some nice matchups here. We have an all South American matchup of Brazil and Argentina. Please make that happen. Please. I really want to see that. And then Denmark and Spain meeting each other in a European matchup. That's very intriguing. Spain, obviously, the heavy favorite there. But Denmark, the dark horse of this tournament, can they beat Spain? I think they can. I'm going for the safe bet and putting Spain going to the final for the first time since 2010. They've had 2 disappointing World Cups in a row. I think they're going to unleash everything now. And I have them getting to the World Cup final against Brazil. Argentina beating Denmark in the 3rd place game. I don't know what's going to happen. It doesn't really matter. Let's go on to the final. And the world champion is Brazil. I think they'll beat Spain. I sit here on penalties. I don't know if that's what's going to happen. Most of my predicting thought process when I've been evaluating all these possibilities has been going into Group B, but I kind of just went with my gut for the knockout rounds, and I do think Brazil will beat Spain in the final. Brazil is the world champion. They win their 6th World Cup, their first in 20 years. And yeah, let me just rattle through some other predictions for like the individual awards and stuff like that. So who is going to be some of those individual awards at this World Cup? So here's who I have for the awards. There's very little thought process behind this, so don't read too much into it. Golden Boot, I have Memphis Depay from the Netherlands. Yes, I have them going out in the quarters. However, they have a relatively easy group. They play Qatar. I had a 4-0 prediction for that game. So I wonder if Depay will score 2 goals or a hat trick, something there. Maybe score a goal against Senegal, Ecuador, or the United States. Memphis Depay could really win the Golden Boot, or at least some. I feel like a Dutch player might win it, even if they go out early. Vini Jr. with the silver boot, just because Brazil's going to the final, so why not? They're going to win it. Bronze boot, I have Messi. I don't know. I had Argentina scoring quite a few goals in this tournament. It's his last World Cup. I don't see why not. So I put Messi being 3rd. There's no Spanish player. Even though I have Spain going to the final, I don't really know who's going to score the goals for them. I think it's going to kind of be by committee for them. So yeah. Golden Ball, I went with Pedri. Yes, I have Spain losing in the final. And yes, he's very young and is also eligible for Best Young Player. But yeah, I think he is going to win the Golden Ball for some reason. He's got so much talent. He's going to be a starter. He's going to be the focal point for Spain. So yeah, Pedri. Silver Ball, I have Neymar. Like I said, I have Brazil being as the champion. While I don't think he's going to be the top goal scorer, I think that's going to be Vinicius Jr. I do think that Neymar is going to get on the score, is going to be a big contributor for them. So I do have him winning the Silver Ball. And look, the Silver, Golden Ball, Bronze Ball, whatever, that whole thing is really kind of a popularity contest in the end. Like the stars will win, and Pedri's the star for Spain. Neymar's the poster boy of Brazil. And for the Bronze Ball, I have Christian Eriksen. I think Denmark is, their strength is their team unit. That they can function as a group, as a machine. I don't think there is going to be one player that stands out for them. But Christian Eriksen coming back into this World Cup after what happened at the Euros does have that feel-good factor. And I'm really excited to see him play at this World Cup for Denmark. He's playing well right now. So I do have him getting the Bronze Ball, kind of, because I do feel like as Denmark are going to be reaching the semifinals, I think they will give them one of these awards because they are arbitrary, because it's the Golden Ball, the Silver Ball, and Bronze Ball. So yeah, Christian Eriksen, Bronze Ball. Golden Glove, Kasper Schmeichel. Again, that's an arbitrary award. It's not like the Golden Boot. So yeah, I do think Kasper Schmeichel will win that. He'll be backstopping Denmark's incredible run to the semifinals, which I truly believe in. And we'll see what happens. By the way, for those of you who are 21 and older, 33-1. That's plus 3,300 for Denmark to win the World Cup. Not a bad bet. Anyway, best young player, Vinicius Jr. Again, Brazil's gonna win the tournament. Like I said, I mean, I know it's the obvious pick, but I do have them winning the tournament in my bracket. I think that's how it's gonna pan out. So, Vini, best young player. I know Pedri's eligible for the award too. So, but they don't give it to the same person ever. So, like, yeah, like for instance, at the Euros, Donnarumma was the player of the tournament, but the other awards, like he was eligible for best goalkeeper, eligible for best young player, but they give it to different people sometimes. So, Vini Jr. best young player, even though Pedri wins the Golden Ball, it's just the way it is sometimes. So yeah, those are my predictions for the awards. Let me know what you think of those. Hey, if the U.S. reach the quarterfinals, Gio Reyna on Best Young Player watch. So yeah, what do you think of those predictions? Definitely some bold ones. Definitely some that are probably not going to happen. Let's be real. It's an impossible task to predict a tournament. And if you just predict all the obvious things, it's no fun. You have to throw some curveballs in there. You have to throw some bold stuff out there. And I went bold. Morocco getting out of the group. Denmark reaching the semifinals. Some stuff could happen. But yeah, let me know what you think. What are your boldest, hottest takes for this World Cup? Let me know. But yeah, don't forget to subscribe, follow me on Twitter and TikTok. And I will see you guys very soon.